Here we go. We are here going to make some noise about A Quiet Place, Day One, a prequel. And everyone knows how I feel about prequels. So tonight we're going to discuss whether or not, is this cause for hope in terms of movies that take place before other movies that have come out after those movies? I don't know. We'll see. I want to have a really fun, robust conversation with Earth's Mightiest Critics. And what do you know? They're here with me. I'm Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We have Cati Glidewell, the bald in front, aka the blonde in front. We have Annie Banks of the Mary Sue, and we got this covered. We got Mark the Movie Man Krawczyk of Special Mark Productions and the Spoiler Room podcast, and Jeff York of the Establishing Shot and Pipeline Artists. Welcome, everybody. How you doing?
Good to see you all.
Good. All right. Oh no. Look, we're not going to whisper. I was tempted to have everyone just like whisper or not talk, just maybe sign the entire show, but I don't know sign language. So that would be a very big problem for me. I know, but we'd like text you our thoughts and then you'd sign them out for us. That'd just be weird. But if they do A Quiet Place Part 4 or 3, technically, yes, then I might consider that if I deigned to watch the film. So, all right. We were talking last week about Matinee, a movie that I had watched for the first time, really, and one that I fell in love with, thanks to the gimmick of a movie theater back in the Cuban Missile Crisis. You had a character named Lawrence Woolsey, who played by John Goodman, who showed up to promote his new movie Mant and to get butts in seats. He electrified those seats. He had people running through the aisles in costume to freak out the audience, to really give people a reason to come out and celebrate the magic of movies. And I was reminded, honestly, of when I saw A Quiet Place back in 2018, which, I wasn't quite ready for it. It was kind of it sounded like a gimmick movie, but the fact that the entire audience, I was at a mixed critics and audience preview screening, but the old cliche, if you could hear a pin drop, was definitely true. I don't even think I heard people unwrapping their candies while this movie was going on, or even eating popcorn. It was, complete silence. Everyone was on the edge of their seats. And hold on a second. Since it's a quiet place, David, so I'm not going to yell at you for being late, but welcome.
Yeah.
David Fowlie of Keeping It Real popping in. So, yeah, I was just kind of talking about the experience of seeing A Quiet Place in 2018. I believe you were at that. Didn't we talk about that with Lee afterwards at the old AMC River East, if I remember?
I believe so.
Yeah, but it was a great experience because everybody was together. We were all on the edge of our seats experiencing something. It was like almost a new way to watch movies, or at least it felt like it. And they came out with a sequel a few years later, and I thought, can they do this again? I don't think that they really pulled it off, because it was, hey, let's go forward and also go back to see a bit of what happened leading up to this. And now we're going way back to A Quiet Place Day One, and the gimmick, or the kind of the silent movie aspect of it, because this is humans figuring out how to deal with an invasive alien species that reacts to noise and then eats people if you make even a ruffling of or a torn shirt. That's how sensitive they are. It's pushed to the background. So we have a lot of talking, a lot of noise. It felt like any other kind of alien invasion movie to me. And so I left the theater, the complete opposite end of the spectrum of A Quiet Place in 2018. When I left that screening, I was like, wow, this is a really kind of original idea. I want to see more from these writers, these filmmakers, but I don't want to necessarily see more of A Quiet Place. But now we've got a lot more of A Quiet Place. What do we think, going around the panel, kind of high-level reactions to the movie, and let's dig into it. Cati, you're to my right. I can't tell, but you're right next to me on the screen. So what did you think of A Quiet Place Day One?
I actually think I liked A Quiet Place Day One more than A Quiet Place. I felt there's a lot of aspects that they're taking, like any disaster in New York, that were very reminiscent to me of seeing the photos and videos of people walking down the street after 9/11 with the ash of buildings, ground, even other human beings probably like on themselves and just in shock, dismay, confusion, all the and I thought that's, I mean, just going back 23 years, I'm just immediately thrown back to that. I think the casting was incredible. Having Lupita Nyong'o and the circumstance that she's in, it's relatable to me, not so much, but in a way it is, and so I could relate to that and some of the circumstances that she's going through. But it did have its faults, but I do like the fact that with Day One, it didn't throw a lot of the stuff that we know that is a way to kind of avoid the monsters and all that stuff, but it definitely gave little subtle hints to that. There's one or two things when we get to spoilers I like to talk about, because as you said, the monsters eating the humans, is that what there's something in this one that I was a little confused about. That was a small scene in there that was like, okay, that's different. But I like Jaimin Hansu. I know he's in A Quiet Place 2, seeing his character and his family. I love Joseph Quinn. I think he was amazing. The anxiety and dealing with that and everything. Do I think some people probably would have died, though, when they're making some noise? Yeah. I know there was a lot less noise in my theater than when I saw it in 2018, because that was one of my reviews. Like, you know, who would have immediately died? Everyone in my theater, because it couldn't shut the F up. So, yeah,
no.
That was my 2018 experience. This one, they actually were quiet, and I actually wrote that down. Well done, people. We shall survive. I think the cat, though, Frodo the cat, I know it's two cats. Good for freaking that cat, man. I mean, that honestly makes me want to adopt a cat. That was a great cat. I just know, I don't know. I left the theater liking this film more than the other two. One of the things I had a major problem with A Quiet Place is where the hell did they get all that sand? I mean, it seems like they were in, I don't know, somewhere New York, that's a lot of sand that they collected to go from downtown in their small town all the way to walk. I mean, I just immediately, I was like, what is this? And at least with this one, you could tell, I mean, they really pumped up the tension with all the people walking in the street, and you knew that any teeny tiny noise, and they made sure there were a lot more close-ups in this film than I feel like either of the other two. Again, suspense, like anxiety inducing, like all that stuff. And I mean, I'm a very, very big fan of this one.
Okay. Cool. Well, definitely, yeah, there's a lot we can come back to on that. But David. Yes, you.
Feel like I'm on Hollywood Squares. I understand what you're saying about it. Feels like any other alien movie. I mean, it's not A Quiet Place. I mean, it's because it's day one, right? People don't.
It's more like the first 3 or 4 days. That was the other aspect of this. I'm
right.
like, this is not a. Never mind.
Right.
I'm gonna go off later, but
yeah,
go ahead.
I was a little annoyed that it took place in New York, because I feel like, how many movies do we see an alien invasion in New York? But whatever. I really liked it just because it's one of those rare kind of survival movies that I think maybe it's because it's day one where we actually see people helping each other out and being like kind to each other. Mm-hmm. It takes a little while for, even in The Walking Dead, it takes a little while for people to realize that, the problem isn't them, it's us. Stay away from people, not zombies or creatures that look like they're from Stranger Things. But I was kind of, surprised by that. I was waiting for some human to like just, be awful. I didn't really see a whole lot of that here. It was kind of cool.
Arguably, I have to interject. Arguably, except for the main character.
Arguably.
nah, I don't know that it's that tough a sell. I really wish the movie had just been about the cat, because Sam Lupita Nyong'o's character, she's a great actress and she does well in this movie, but I think the script did her a tremendous disservice from the get-go. But I don't want to step on your toes. Go ahead,
Yeah,
David.
I mean, it is, granted, it is day one, and we don't need to have, a perfect human being for the protagonist. But
I'll start with one that is somewhat likable, but go ahead, please.
yeah. I found her likable. I mean, these two actors are great at kind of emoting so much without saying anything. Quinn and Liango. I liked, to be honest, I liked, probably if I had to do it in order, the first one I still think is the best one, but I put this one second and the second one third. I just don't feel like, I feel like A Quiet Place and A Quiet Place Day One, they're like worlds apart. Okay. Just very much so. Because of the time frame. And I think the audience definitely has an advantage in this movie. Because we know what's going on. We know what these creatures are. Unless you're coming into this brand new, which is odd. But hey, I'm sure some people will.
Well, it's not odd, because by nature of it being a prequel, 20 years from now, when people go to watch these movies, if they're still watching or talking about them, they're probably going to start with A Quiet Place Day One. Especially if they read the description talking about how this is, the origin of how the aliens got here. So it's a problem, I think, of the modern prequel, especially when you have all of these different movies in a series, and then you go back to the beginning. By the time you get to the one that put the series on the map, I feel like future audiences will have tuned out. You're like, again, really?
Yeah.
But okay, go ahead.
This reminded me a lot of, at times, the original War of the Worlds, where you're just kind of roaming through war-torn city, especially the whole church thing. And I think the production design is really good, and some of these, action sequences, especially towards the end, was like, it was really. I was kind of on the edge of my seat at times, not all the time, but I really liked it, mainly because it's more of a character piece than a jump scare movie.
Okay. Mark.
No, I'm just
Can't
kidding.
read that.
Just kidding. No, just kidding.
Are you scoring my opinions, or what's going on?
No.
7.
I thought this was I thought it was a decent film partly because of the cast. I think if you don't have the cast that you have in here, this film definitely probably would not have hit the same with me. But with especially our lead, Nyong'o's performance in here, really, it was something different than what you might expect for your basic alien horror film. I mean, and not the fact that she has a terminal illness, which I thought was an interesting approach, in that it gave her the interesting motivation of, yeah, all you guys can go. I just want to go get some pizza. I kind of dug that motivation for my main character, actually, just because it was different than, hey, we got to get to the boat. She don't give a damn about the boat. She's in New York. She wants to try to get some pizza. She's holding on to this because she's been trying to deal with this terminal illness. And all of that comes through, I think, fairly well with the performance. I wanted to see more of I hope I pronounced the names right. Ian, I'm horrible with this, but with Husan,
Hansu?
with his thank you,
Jaimin
Hansu. Thank you, Hansu. I see my brain flips things. Hansu. I wanted to see more of his character again, because I really liked the few scenes he had. It was like, I want to see him and her traversing the alien New York landscape, because I loved those two together, and I loved those scenes in the theater with them, in the puppet marionette theater. It is more character than Aliens. They don't really add anything at all outside of what Katie mentioned, a confusing scene that makes me wonder if something got cut to the cutting room floor for time or whatnot with the aliens. So that if you're going and you're thinking, oh, prequel, we're going to learn more about the aliens, you're going to be disappointed because you get exactly the same behaviors and stuff from these aliens that we had seen. But in this case, it's more about the character than the aliens. And I thought that was an interesting approach. And I can understand how some people would be disappointed with that. But on the other hand, I think setting it in a big city, didn't have to be New York, but I get it. New York, it's iconic. You can, any natural disaster, aliens are going to ignore Stevens Point, Wisconsin. They're going to go right for New York because, they got to impress their boss or something. I don't know. You take over Stevens Point, we'll be like, yeah, you want some brats and some cheese curds? We'll welcome them. But so I like the performances. I like the dynamic. I enjoyed the cat. I actually wish, who was, again, Jason Quinn, was it?
Quinn.
Joseph Quinn, thank you. I wish they would have did a little bit more with his character. It almost felt like they were going to, but his arc changes slightly, but I would have liked to see a little bit more because I found him interesting, and I found pairing him with him who's panicking and he just needs to survive, and she don't give a damn. She's going about her business. I thought it was an interesting dichotomy between these two, but they don't do much with his character outside of being the panic attack guy until the end, until we get to the Blues Club where he's suddenly a magician, which I loved that bit. I'm like, where was more of his character before now? Even hints of it. I think it would have been far more, made their journey a little bit more interesting. That said, overall, I think it was a decent horror film. I don't think it was like mind-blowing, but I think they did better, with it than I expected them to do with it. It was a different approach. At the same time, as you say, Ian, a problem with prequels are you adding something to it? The only thing that made me hopeful with very hopeful with A Quiet Place day one is the fact that it's showing, hey, okay, you've expanded it now. Take us to other places and see how they've dealt with these aliens differently. We've seen now when they first crashed. We've seen how rural America handles the aliens out in the middle of nowhere. Show me a mid-sized city. Show me, how is a military installation of some sort, and how the soldiers, are handling things if they get cut off or whatnot. Scientists figuring things out. You can do that now with this because they've made it at least decent enough to show that they can show an entertaining story without your main original characters that you started with, maybe a few Easter eggs put in. And then I'm like, okay, so expand out further now for me, or go past where we were with the second film, but not with those characters, with a completely new group of people. But it's past that timeline. And don't get me wrong, I like the characters from the first two films quite a bit, except for the dad. My oldest son says the dad makes the stupidest, he makes one of the dumber moves in the film. And then he had some questions about that, he didn't care for the first one as much as the second one. He enjoyed the second one more, mostly because he didn't care for the dad character. But long story short, too late. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It wasn't my top horror film so far for mid-season, and I know that bucks against some of the HCA folks where I actually did the voting for. But I still think I had a good time with it, mostly though because of the cast. I think if you just had basic, not so much talent on screen, I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely, I can agree with you there to a point, because I mean, I didn't like these characters at all. I think the screenplay was terrible, like really bad.
Surprise.
But the character, the actors, I think really serviced it well. I'm with you. I wish Djimon Hounsou had been, like, if the movie had been about him and the cat, Sam gets eaten and he has to take care of the cat and then his family, I think I would have been like, first of all, I would have stood up and applauded. And second of all, I would have skipped out of the theater.
Wow.
But
Damn,
that's
applause and skipping. Wow.
probably some singing too. But anyway, I just want to let everyone know, I'm not sure exactly what happened, but Annie had to run. So we didn't, unfortunately, get her thoughts on A Quiet Place day one. But maybe next week, which we'll be talking about South Park next Wednesday, bigger, longer, uncut 25th anniversary. Maybe if she joins then, we can get some thoughts on that. Sujiwa is in the chat with lots and lots of thoughts. He's our unofficial 5th/6th panelist, but
Some might
before we
say
get to
too
him-
many thoughts.
maybe.
I
But
I disagree with a couple of his thoughts, but
we'll get to
disagree
those.
with a
But
lot.
first, we have in the flesh, sort of pixelized digital flesh, Jeff York. High level thoughts on A Quiet Place day one.
I enjoyed it, but it is a movie that I fundamentally disagree with. Now, that sounds like a contradiction, but I think this film is maybe that too. I think it was well acted. I especially like the cat. I mean, that's a great cat character and performance. That cat does a lot in this movie and very crucial to many, many scenes. I love the fact that the cat is smart enough to get away when it realizes that things are going south, but then kind of comes back when, hey, I'm hungry, or maybe you're my caretaker. But the fundamental thing, as I thought more and more about it, even though I enjoyed it, I think it's well acted. I think there's a lot of good special effects and interesting parts of it. I did enjoy it. I mean, I was sort of surprised that they concentrated so narrowly on really 2, maybe 3 characters with the cat. In fact, I think the cat was more developed than Joseph Quinn's character.
yes.
But I did like that it was character driven and centrally focused like that, which I think is very similar to the first movie for sure. And to some degree, the second one, though they expanded it. However, and maybe this is getting at something that I think we probably could all agree on. It depends on how adamantly we agree with maybe this somewhat negative opinion. To me, if you're going to do a prequel and you're going to call it day one, and you're going to take place in New York City that they talk about the decibel level from the very get-go, I want to know why there aren't 2 million aliens invading New York. It's so noisy. There's so many people there. What happened to the fighting or the reaction to it? I mean, it's wonderful to see the people do it. It reminded me, to your point, about the War of the Worlds, or even to some degree like World War Z and some of those kind of things where you see common people running around reacting. But was there any military response? Were there any kinds of radar or satellites picking up that this was happening? I'm not necessarily saying I want it to be like Independence Day, where we've got the president and different people like that, and suddenly we're in an underground lair trying to figure out how to beat these guys. However, all the stuff that they did here, to your point, we are familiar with. We know. In fact, we actually have an advantage over the characters because we know how a simple shirt ripped can get it. And so when the shirt rips, you know that the alien is coming in. We're not surprised, which is kind of robbing us of a little bit of some of the terror that we especially had in the first one. But I wanted to know a little bit more of what was going on with other people. I know you have to take leaps of fantasy and these kind of things, and I grant you any movie asks for that, and there's probably plot holes in most of them. But I had too many questions about this day one that weren't answered. And as it went on more and more, I found, well, it's interesting to think that they didn't drown Frodo, even though he's underwater for at least 25, 30 seconds. But somehow I guess I buy that here. But I want to know, what was the response in day 2 and 3, as you're talking about here? Having been in New York on 9/11, I can tell you that day 2, and they never cover this when they talk about the news and the remembrances, everybody thought we were still under attack. So there were police in the street. And they weren't just going, around mourning the loss of all the people in the towers. There was a very strong police and, authority kind of presence in the streets, because they didn't want people coming out because they thought we might still be under attack on that second day. Same into day 3, and by day 4, by Friday, when they started to open up stores again, then we realized, okay, I guess it's kind of done and we can maybe come out wherever you are. But here, I just kept thinking as I was watching it, I like this focus. I think the cat is fun. Lupita's giving it her all. It's kind of amazing how she finds her place. And then why does she want pizza? Oh, it's tied up with a bow with the jazz and the dad and all that stuff at the end. But I want to know what's going on here. There's no communication. There's no alarm bells. There's no counterattack. Maybe that comes in weeks after. Maybe that'll be, A Quiet Place month 7, and then we work up an attack or something for it. But I think to Mark's point, they raise too many questions. And if you're going to do a prequel, I don't think you can just say, well, we're going to do it even tighter focus now. But, the thing that I think made the first Quiet Place so wonderful is you had the added value of, okay, this baby's on the way and you can't control the baby. And I kept thinking they were going to do something with the cat, because cats get very vocal, but this cat was a very well-behaved cat. He never peeped or meowed or showed any fear. But knowing that the cat was going to be quiet, these guys figured out very quickly how to sort of be quiet. Most people were hiding or on the boat. I kept wondering, what's the bigger picture here? What's the bigger response? Where's the world on this? The communications, the defense, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, all very good points. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. Sajua, in one of his comments, mentioned, which we'll get to because it's quite a scroll, but we'll do that in a second. He mentioned Cloverfield. In 2008, Katie mentioned that this movie has a lot of 9/11 imagery. I'm tired of it. It's not novel anymore. Since that since that event happened, there have been movies doing the 9/11 thing. Whether you're talking about the opening of, Batman v Superman, or Man of Steel for that matter, or Cloverfield. We've had a lot of movies trying to evoke those sensibilities. It's possibly been a while, but when I'm even watching the trailer and I saw that they were doing that, I'm like, okay, I know what I'm in for. But they don't really do anything with it. It's like, yeah, it reminds me of news footage I saw 2 decades ago. I don't even know if the younger generation who are, possibly going to be attracted to this movie will even get or care that that's some kind of a visual, an illusion. But as far as this being, I mentioned that I don't like the Sam character. Her opening scene is she's in hospice, in a kind of a group therapy session, and she's reading, I guess they're reading poetry, and she reads a poem about how everything is shit, everybody is shit, all of their poems are shit. And I'm like, okay, she's not funny. It doesn't look like she's making a joke. No one else around her is really reacting positively to her. And she doesn't really change throughout the entire film. I mean, even when she meets up with this, I don't know, the Quinn guy, Eric.
Yeah.
I guess he had a name. She spends most of the relationship telling him to buzz off. Like, I'm going to go get my pizza. You're going to slow me down. Just like go find something else. And, she's got a cat companion, but he's like the little lost wet puppy that just keeps following her. And they eventually develop a relationship that, I mean, I think to Mark's point, is completely out of convenience to the plot. You mentioned he has an arc. He doesn't. I mean, he suddenly perks up and does magic tricks. But, then at the very end of the film, and I guess we can put some spoilers on here. Yes. Okay, we are talking spoilers. At the very end of the film, Sam just makes a distraction to get Eric to the boat, and then he's off on the boat, and that's it. If you had asked me how this movie was going to end, I probably would have said the exact same thing, because that's how the first Quiet Place movie ended, with John Krasinski, the dad, doing a distraction, making a sacrifice so that his family could get away. Also, as far as the timeline goes, yes, this is a day one, but that's where the movie starts. And over the course of the film, I lost count, but there are 2, 3, possibly, I don't know if it made it to 4 days.
3 days. It's 3 days.
All right.
It's 3 days because there's the first night, there's the afternoon of the attack, and then you have overnight at the theater, and then the second night is at her apartment, and then that's the second night, and then the third day is when they make it to the pizza, and then they make a run for
I think
it
the
as
third
well.
night's in the church.
Oh, that's right. So that would be the third night.
All right.
So 3 nights and 3 days.
4 days.
4 days.
Yeah.
Okay. So that doesn't make it any better, because the whole thing is like, okay, after the attack, that there is a military response. They are, or at least a Coast Guard or some kind of an apparatus. They do blow up the bridges into New York, which again we've seen, going back to The Dark Knight Rises, and I'm sure
I Am
that
Legend.
doesn't know. And I Am Legend. That's right. I had a flash in my head of Will Smith like watching explosions. I'm like, yes, that was the same thing. But they're like, okay, there's gonna be a boat coming into the harbor. We've somehow magically figured out that these creatures can't swim. So everybody get on the boat and we'll take you someplace safe. Great. You see hundreds and hundreds of people making their way to those boats. Now there is an attack, so not everybody makes it. But at the end of the film, when they get on the boat, Djimon Hounsou and his family are on that boat. Now, ostensibly, they would have been making their way to that vessel about as early as everybody else. Now, sure, they may have gotten sidetracked, but I'm pretty sure they didn't go all the way to Harlem to get frickin' pizza. So are there multiple boats going in and out every day? Is this the one boat? I mean, no one said, hey, make your way to this harbor. In 3 days, there's going to be a boat. No, it just doesn't.
Well, see,
make sense.
those are the kind of questions that I think as the movie goes on, you start to ask yourself. I mean, also, it looks like there's a handful of people left, which, I mean, the per capita for the miles that make up Manhattan are some of the most densely populated of any given part of America. All those people were killed, or where are these people? Are they hiding? Are they, I wanted some of those kind of things answered, because the way the movie, after the first attack, it then loses a lot of people. I mean, suddenly they're all gone. And, I know it can't be cast of 10,000 people and everything else, but I think part of the fun of being in New York, if you want to call it as a fun location, is that there are so many people and there is so much noise. And you would think that somehow all the noise, the traffic noise, whatever they are, would be bad for the aliens and their, very, very sensitive hearing. They also missed opportunities to make the cat's hearing, which is also very sensitive, kind of an equal and maybe even a learned thing that they could have figured out about the aliens themselves. But I don't know. I mean, like I said, I enjoyed so much of it and while I'm watching it, but I think they missed an opportunity to make this film more meaningful as opposed to just another story of somebody's reaction to it, when you've got this island which is filled with millions of people. You've got all this noise that should have been a deterrent against some of the alien attacks. I don't know where the aliens are hiding out or where all the other people are, but were they able to completely block out and knock out all the communications as well? I don't know. I'm not saying it had to be super deep on all that, but a little bit of that. And if our military is taking up the bridges, what else are they doing? Let's see some of that, because we've seen that kind of stuff before.
Well, I mean, it's not even a matter of going deep, Jeff. I think these are base level things you have to ask yourself if you're doing an alien invasion in New York. Again, you do this in a small town or a medium-sized town, you can maybe forgive it. Like the military is going to take a while to get there or whatever. But one of the things that the reasons that I loved the first Quiet Place is it is a puzzle. It's a mystery, because we don't, we're dealing with the family. We're dealing with them trying to be quiet, like the little details of playing Monopoly on blankets. Everything is like kind of covered in felt. So when they're rolling the dice, everything is a hazard. And you see John Krasinski, I think, I haven't watched the movie in a few years, but I think that he's got like a radio room where he's trying to like piece things together. And you see all these bits of notebook paper and sketches and bits of information that he's picking up and like lists of things that he's learned from stuff here and there. And to me, that's painting the picture of, oh my gosh, everyone was taken by surprise. They had to figure this out. Communication was instantly knocked out. There is a real distance between the country folk and the big city, but there's no mystery here. Like there's nothing to unpack. So while I'm watching this, I'm only thinking about other movies that I've seen doing the exact same thing and doing it far better.
I really wish they would have done a Mars Attack thing where you have somebody in a car playing a and then
Slim Whitman
heads blow up. That would have been awesome. But my thing that confused me, that I think is a fault. Look, I think there actually was a huge military presence. I mean, even when they were in the Marionette Theater, they couldn't go to Harlem to get a pizza because obviously there was something going on. I don't know if there's going to be another one where it's going to show the military seeing that there's some sort of ship in space, and maybe to try and like do the Star Wars thing, they decided to blow it up, and instead of like killing everything, that's why all the aliens decided to drop off everywhere. I don't know. I didn't write it. Maybe.
Katie, that is a really cool look. You start off this movie at in CENTCOM, they discover this thing, they like blow it up, and that it's like lifting. Yeah, I'm trying like uncovering something in your kitchen. All of a sudden, 100 cockroaches come out. Right? Yes, that would have been interesting
because it's the fact that, and unlike in A Quiet Place or A Quiet Place 2, they obviously in those two films. I mean, this was like all of a sudden you got a freaking huge thing landing on a car and then everyone's dying. This one, they knew something was going on. They were trying to evacuate the city. They had the huge alarm going off, but they had the sirens going off. So we knew something was happening. And that's why it's like, that's kind of what I thought. Like when you see the little, what looks like meteors coming down, it's like, we know that those are aliens and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought, well, maybe they tried to blow up the ship and stuff like that. The thing that I was confused about though is, and I mean, again, we've seen the first and second film. So we know, especially with the second film, that they don't like water. In the first film, we know people can talk around water because they can't hear it.
Right.
Okay. Now we know where, that happened where they got pregnant. But in this one, I mean, on day 2, when those huge helicopters are going off and they're like running like rats in the city, to follow the helicopters, they're saying it's like, make it to the water. They're afraid of water. And that's one of the faults that I thought, because all these people like John Krasinski has the radio thing. I would have thought that would have been a huge thing that he would have heard on the radio, and that would have been like, play telephone, let everyone know they're afraid of water, get to any body of water, and that way you can survive. And it's very obvious too that that alien, you can say what you want about Frodo being underwater for 25-30 seconds, but that alien was under there too, and he was out, or they, I don't know what gender they are. They were out by like 10 seconds, and it almost looked like they were kind of dissolving too, which I thought was interesting.
Katie, I do want to give some credit there, because that scene, although I thought it was kind of a ridiculous setup, because when we first meet the Eric character, he's coming up, he's popping up from the completely submerged New York subway. And then a day, maybe 2 days later, I know they're in a different part of the city, but they're going down into the subway, and there's just, I don't know that the drainage is that sophisticated in New York that they would go from completely submerged to, hey, it's kind of waist deep and we can swim under it. But my point is, I wanted to compliment the film. Yes, that was interesting. Because when they go into the water and you've got the xenomorph chasing them under the water, I was like, okay, now we're back to Alien Resurrection. But it dies. It died really quickly. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? I don't know. And then the shot of when Sam is coming up from the water, it's just kind of like these gold lights of the station. It's a beautiful shot. I was like, I want more of this. That's what I thought. This movie would have been really cool if it had been almost a silent film, following a deaf cat around the city, just like experiencing the invasion and going in and out, kind of maybe like a Stephen King's Cat's Eye, where you meet different groups of people, but this cat is like kind of weaving in and out of them, something like that.
Robert Hayes is going around the side of a building, and there's one of those aliens crawling down it, and he's like, fuck, I can't get a break here.
Yeah, well, James Woods is trying to quit smoking during the apocalypse. Sorry.
What did you guys think? There's 2 things regarding the aliens too. One that was in the sewer/subway. It almost looked like it was burnt, and it wasn't the only one that was kind of like that. I thought that there were just a few of them, not all of them, but a few of them that had like a distinctive kind of like different sort of skin on it. which I thought was interesting. And I was like, I don't know what this is supposed to mean and stuff like that. But then there's a thing, and since we've got the spoilers, what was with that garden with what they were eating? That is a huge thing.
Yeah.
Like, I thought the whole thing was that they were eating humans, but there is definitely something that they planted in that construction site that seemed to be their main source of food for the aliens. So that to me was like a major, like, okay, what the F is this? And okay. I mean, are they and were they using dead bodies to make? No, I don't see anything. So I'm like, all right.
David, you had a theory about that?
At first, I thought that those were like their eggs or something.
That's what I thought. Yeah,
I kind of thought,
they're eating their own. Then
Frodo licked it, and it was like lick. I'm like, wait, what? No.
Yeah.
Lick. I'm doing the cat. Sorry.
But no, I mean, yeah, I thought they were some kind of like a nesting. Because the whole area they were in, it's all like very fiery and orange and up on this kind of like scaffolding. It reminded me like something out of the cut scene from the first Alien where Ripley walks into the nest and sees Tom Skerritt and what's left of Brett. But no, it's not that. This thing kind of opens, or they rip it open, and then they're using their teeth on. I'm like, this is an odd way to birth something. But then by that time, the cat or Eric or whoever had made some kind of noise, so they're off to the races. Like, oh, we're just going to leave this. We'll probably cover it in A Quiet Place day 3 or 2 or whatever they're going to do. I don't know. The other thing, since we're talking about the sewer scene, and I know this is unfair, but it's, we watch a lot of movies, and I kept thinking about Cloverfield during this, and how there's a sewer scene in Cloverfield where they're trying to make their way across city underneath actually, no, it's the trains. They're in the underground subway, and they're going along the tracks, and they see all these rats scurrying past them. And that's when they encounter, for the first time, a creature that's not the creature that they've been running from, this giant thing that's destroying New York. It's the parasites that have fallen off of it and gone underground. And it's this new threat. I remember thinking, oh my God, this movie is now all of a sudden something completely different. There are new stakes. I was thinking about that watching this, subway scene. I'm like, there's nothing. It's just, they're being chased by a monster, and they're going to go up above ground and do something else, probably involving pizza. It's been well established that I don't like Sam.
Here's the thing, and I know you guys don't, or some people don't like her.
I think I stand alone. Don't blame anyone else.
This is my thing. Watching what she's going through when she's on the brink of dying, and believe me, what the disease she has, you have very little choices. You have very little things that are in your control. When she knows that she's going to die no matter what, she's like, fuck it. I don't care. I'm not here to make friends. This is the end of the world. I'm going to die no matter what. Whether this thing comes at me or not, I'm done. I want to go to the last place that made me happy, that reminded me of my father. If I can get a slice, great. If not, I just want to be to the place that is my home and that feels like my heart is there. I could relate to that. And I know it's like, she may not be a likable character and all that stuff, but I mean, it's with this situation, I am glad, at least with the whole things with it has to be silence. You don't have like certain types of violence that are in a lot of other end of the world movies and stuff like that. But for me, I totally understood what Sam was doing.
My big issue, I think, with Sam is that I don't have any reason, based on the evidence of what I've seen of her character, to care about her getting that pizza. She's mean to absolutely everybody until towards the end of the film, when she kind of takes a liking to Eric, but you get the feeling he's just kind of worn her down. So when she's like, I'm going to Harlem to get pizza, I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? And then I'm like, oh, she's got cancer, she's dying, this is probably her one last wish. There needs to be a better character for me to believe that and want to sit through another hour of the movie. because at that point I don't care. Or at least have Jaimin Hansu, who, you know, that moment where he has to kill the guy on the stairwell, you know, with his son possibly having watched his dad commit murder in order to save everybody else. That was the best scene in the entire film.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I want to follow that guy. I want to know what that does to him. How does he lead or become, you know, stay part of a group of survivors having to deal with this survivor's guilt and this guilt of murdering someone? Because we don't know what that guy's story was. Maybe he was prone to panic attacks or something. He couldn't help himself. And so it's all the more tragic. I don't know. But we're stuck following this other character. And they get there and it's 3 days. Okay, again, make this day one. There's a chance that there's still a warm piece of pizza left in that joint. But first of all, Patsy's, the pizza place, is still standing. Second of all, there's still pizza in there that hasn't been, you know, destroyed by, you know, blown up or whatever. And it's probably cold because I don't know if the electricity is working so well in there. Although it does selectively, because I think they have some in the lounge where they're at. Very convenient. Also,
that wasn't Patsy, though.
Well, she got the
He
went
didn't get
by,
the pizza from Patsy's.
Well, wherever they got the pizza from, because Patsy's was blown out, or because he
wrote it on the other box to make it seem like it was Patsy's.
That's right. But he kind of lied to her, I think, and she didn't quite believe him. That was kind of cute.
It was a joke.
But wherever they went, it's a joke, I guess, but it's not. You know, it might as well have been Patsy's, because the point is it's ridiculous. Wherever he found this pizza, he got a piece of pizza, giant New York slice, and they ate it, and it was probably.
He didn't get a piece of pizza; he got a whole box.
He got a whole.
Oh, that's
pie.
right.
Yeah, he got a whole
that's
pie.
right, David. That makes it all better.
It does.
The other thing.
Hot pizza, cold pizza, pizza's pizza.
And you could tell by the look on her face that it's not as good as Patsy's, but it'll do. You know, what are you gonna do?
How the hell could she tell if it was good as Patsy's? It's cold. It's been sitting in probably a bombed out pizzeria.
Look, obviously, if
if
Patsy's pizza meant so much to her, she must really love it, and it's probably her favorite place. So she can tell if it's not Patsy's or Patsy's.
It was the place she went to all the time with her father, and that they established it that she had gone there quite often. So she remembers the taste of the pizza. So
I get that, but it's also an indication, Mark, and this is another reason I couldn't get behind her character. Like, I needed to know that for whatever reason, her family was all gone. She was estranged or whatever, but she just seemed like this miserable person who, at the end of her life, at the end of everything else, the only thing she can think of is having a pizza that resonated with her from her childhood. I don't know this lady, and her cat. I don't know this lady. I don't care about her story. She doesn't appear to have any family. If she does, I wouldn't be surprised if they stopped talking to her because she's so unpleasant.
Dude, newsflash. Some people who are terminally ill are unpleasant.
Yeah.
Well,
they really don't care if you like them or not.
That's fine. I don't want to watch them be the hero of a movie for 2 hours and not change.
They don't have to be the hero of the movie. They just have to be the protagonist.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't want to see that either. I mean, I'm watching
Frodo was the hero.
It's too late. You did.
You go to movies for escapism, right? I see enough miserable fucking people walking around day in and day out, right? I go to the movies and I want to have a reason to want to watch this person for 2 hours. And I didn't. There were other people in the cast. I'm like, can I follow them, please?
I can't wait
Who they
to see
have
what you think of
pathos, they
Kinds
have
of
problems.
Kindness.
I'm not going to watch it. Yorgos Lanthimos is trash and he's dead to me. So the other thing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about noise, because they go to Sam's apartment. She's got a friend's apartment. I'll say that in that everybody who was on Friends, regardless of what they did, they lived in these amazing giant places. She's a fucking poet, and unless you're talking Maya Angelou levels of fame, in which case I doubt she's going to be holed up in that hovel of a hospice center with no one around her to attend to, like friends or family or even underlings. She lives in this amazing looking apartment, and I don't know if it was at her place or one of the other places she visited, but there's a thunderstorm, and they decide, hey, the thunder can mask us screaming and letting out all this rage. I'm like, yeah, it could. Or it could awaken what I'm sure are the hundreds, thousands, at least dozens, hell, even one of these creatures, which has taken over all of New York and apparently the planet, because by the time we get to movie 3, which is technically movie 1, I guess, A Quiet Place, they're everywhere. They're in the cornfields of Nebraska where they have all this sand or whatever it is, right? So not one, they don't have any qualms about letting this out. If they do, they should have been attacked by one of these things to say, oh yeah, that was a really dumb idea, because that's what I was thinking watching them do this. Anyway, that was A Quiet Place day 1. No.
No, I think those, yeah, I mean, in some respects, they don't act quite as smart as you wish they would, which is also why I kept wondering, like, is there internet service, or how quickly does it all go to hell? I don't know. Maybe these are unimportant questions, but I think you asked some very good questions about the way they're kind of reacting to it, even going into the water and some of those kind of things with the filth and everything else. You know, you'd think as New Yorkers, they might be a little more cognizant of some of that. I don't know, maybe not, but you know, there's so many ways it could have gone that maybe were similar to other movies, World War Z, War of the Worlds, hell, the Poseidon Adventure. I mean, if you wanted to watch 7 people, let's say as a group, like with Jaman Hinsu taking him through whatever like that, you could have gone that route. We went with 2 people who were kind of, you know, forced to be buddies on a road trip together, if you will, and third with the cat. It's very Harry and Tonto in its way. But I'm very glad they had that cat, because my worry is that they were going to kill the cat, because so often in horror movies they kill the animals. There you go. Save the cat. I was going to say Blake Snyder, the screenwriter read Blake Snyder, because it's a great book. It's a great thing to watch, and Save That Cat. And that cat was darn awesome in this. I mean, he did so much. I mean, I don't know if there's been a better animal performance since Uggy and the Artist.
What about Jonesy?
Yeah, Jonesy and Alien.
Come on, Jonesy.
I said since Uggy in The Artist, which was in 2011. I'm talking about Jonesy and Alien, but that's 40 years ago. So I'm just saying, in the last 20 or so years, I don't know if, or 10, 15 years, I don't know if there's been a better animal performance. That cat did a lot. I mean, and it was very good, very reactive, and had to run all about. I know there were 2 of them, as you said, Katie, but I love the fact that this cat survived. The cat was a main character. It kind of was not only the emotional support character for Sam, but maybe for us in a way. I love the fact that she follows, you know, Eric to get the medicine, and, you know, kind of is showing him ways around and maybe ways to be quiet. I found that quite amusing. Maybe that was comic relief, but I was so pleased that they didn't kill the animal, because I kept waiting. They're going to kill this cat. They're going to kill this cat. Please don't kill the cat. And then they didn't.
In this day and age, they'll kill a kid before they kill the cat.
I don't know about that, Mark.
I've seen.
I would be willing. I'd be willing to tell. I would be willing to hold up almost every horror movie that has a dog in it and tell you that the dog is the first victim.
Well,
Even
I'm talking about a recent year.
Conjuring.
I'm not talking every single horror film. I'm talking about in recent years. Recent. You don't kill the animals in that. It just doesn't happen in films anymore. Just recently in films. It doesn't.
You have to recommend some of those horror movies to me, because almost every horror movie I see, they kill the animal first.
Well, with the horror movies too, very rarely anymore do you actually see an actual animal in there anymore, or a pet. They usually run away and you never see them again.
They're smarter. They're smarter.
The thing with the movie is, and I get what both Jeff and Ian are coming from and what you're looking for in this film. It's not that type of film, and maybe it should have been for many people, because everything's being told from one of the 2 perspectives for the characters. We're either with Samir, with Sam, or we're with Eric. That's it. So as much as what we know, as much as these questions that you would love to know, it's trying to not give you the story outside of their bubble of reality to make you feel what they're going through. And granted, yes, if you're doing it in a city with the scope of New York, maybe this isn't the story to tell in that setting. I totally get that, but it's what we get. And I didn't fault it for that. I did have a few questions, but this whole series, all 3 series, there are a lot of open hole questions about the aliens with the concept. They play very loose with a lot of things across this entire series. And while I'm not saying that's an excuse for not answering questions or whatnot in this one, I guess for me personally, it didn't bug me, because I didn't see it in the first two films, and I wasn't really going to expect it in this one. I thought maybe we'd get a little bit more of the origin story, but once I realized when we open it on Sam's character, I realized, okay, it's just going to be a one or two character centric movie, and we aren't going to explore. So there, we do see destroyed cop cars, we do see destroyed National Guard, we do see the military at some point made some stance and got their asses kicked in this. We do see other boats from perspective, though they don't go there right away, having been traveling in and out of the channel to get the people. It wasn't just the one boat going out. There were shots constantly of her looking towards where the boats were, especially when she hooks up with Eric, and Eric's being a stubborn ass and not going. We do see boats moving through. They do give you that. It is brief. It is past. And that's why I'm wondering what is on the cutting room floor, because the most probably obscure and enigma scene that I wish they hadn't done was the one you guys talked about before with the pods. You're presenting something like that, and we don't get an example like one scene of them carrying bodies into the pit. I imagine that what it looked like was an impact crater from one of their landing, whatever they came in on. Right. That's where it was, and that's what was growing out of it. But you don't get a whole lot of shots of that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, and again, it makes me wonder if they did cut out some more answers or establishing shots with that for maybe time. I'm not sure. Would this film maybe sit with both of you better if it was in the small, like a mid-sized town versus New York? Because you're answering a lot of questions and you're playing off of, well, it should have did this. It could have done this.
Mark, here's my point. Mark, here's my point. This is the third time we've gone and visited this story. Right. And to just retell it with different characters in a small thing is maybe kind of what the tone of it is. And it's a very character-driven horror franchise. But I think if you're going to do a day one story, I think you have a little bit more responsibility to concentrate on just not two people and a cat and stuff. I mean, yeah, there's references to these things, but they go to the apartment and is the electricity, is everything out? What happened? I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying that you have to turn this into Independence Day or something bigger like that, but I had those questions because by the second hour, to Ian's point, I think it starts to feel very familiar. And the problem with it is I think it's not as scary because they're either going to die or not. But when the alien goes in the water, it's like, well, we know they can't exist in water. So really all they have to do is outswim it. I was worried about Frodo, whether he's going to be able to survive under the water or how many.
Me too.
And those things are very effective. I was moved by it. I was involved in it. I wanted the characters to survive. I wanted Frodo to survive. But I think this isn't a long movie, and to your point, I think it did feel like maybe it was edited. Maybe some of the test screenings dumped some stuff, or they glossed over some edits or whatever. But I just expected the third time out here to know a little bit more about these aliens, some sort of news report, something that would have told somebody what's going on, just for me as an audience member, because in some respects, I don't learn anything more about the aliens here than I did in the earlier two films.
No, and that's I'm sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Sorry. No, that's all. I mean, I was just saying I enjoyed the film. I liked a lot of it, but some of those things, third time out, I wanted to know more about.
And that's what I led with too. Is what I enjoy. What I was saying is that we don't, and I even said it in my 1 minute review, we don't get any more answers with the aliens than what we know before. So that is a criticism I do have. I'm not saying it's a perfect horror film by any means. I said I enjoyed it for what it was, not what it probably should have been. Yeah. And maybe that's why I'm the reviewer, not a critic. I don't know. But I enjoyed it for what it was, but there were a lot of opportunities in here. And especially with the aliens, because again, they play loose not only with the rules of the aliens, of what triggers them and what doesn't, and what they can hear and what they can't, because they literally ambush the whole river of people going. And my son made a point of that. He's like, okay, most of these folks probably have established that if you make noise, these aliens come. But what do? They all congregate into a big lemming pile, which is going to make noise, for these.
They were also
aliens.
tuning the horn of that boat too, which can't be good either.
Well, here's the thing though, and that is where I agree with you guys as far as the approach of the military. But I had this problem even in the first two films, figuring out why wasn't this done sooner, and we don't get that answer here. Is okay, you want to get the rest of the people off of Manhattan before you razz it. That's the way I figured it. I figured they were trying to get the people off the island, but not the aliens, so that they could nuke the island. That is really what I figured they were going for. That's what the impression is. The helicopters coming over doing the loudspeaker, they were driving the aliens, away. I'm thinking though, okay, you want the boats and all the people here to get on the boat and evacuate and save as many people as possible. Put a big frigate or two with some Bose ass speakers and or if not, just go to any of those neighborhoods, grab probably one of the cars that's got the bump and bass, put them on the opposite end of the island, fire them up, let the aliens go to that end of the island, and then have all the people evacuate this way. But we don't see that strategy. And again, with A Quiet Place and A Quiet Place, 2, they had been around over a year and a half at that point in those films. And you're telling me that the military didn't have some kind of strategy, what was left to deal with these, even in these smaller areas? So for me, I agree. The military response, especially for them in this film, of how quickly they figure out what's going on with these aliens, they don't seem to do anything. Whether it's perspective from our characters or a wider perspective, it doesn't seem like the government really is making as much of an effort, because all you need to do is put loudspeakers on the opposite end, and you would, So,
what were you going to say, Katie?
Sorry.
I'm sorry, because you're
No.
You get the point.
Two things regarding the thing with water. I know we keep talking about water, and you guys have talked about the rain. As I said, when the alien went in the sewer and it was in the water and seemed to sort of disintegrate, I don't know necessarily if it's just the sound that is the thing that is a distraction with the water, or if they have like an alienation thing and maybe water is acid to them. Because, they don't jump in. And I know they can't swim, but they could have like gone to the edge. They don't want to touch it at all. So one of the things when it's raining, I think that it's subtly sort of mentioned like in that sort of thing in the sewer. But I think maybe like water, any sort of water, disintegrates their skin. 2, I agree with you regarding the sound. That was one of the things that it's like, since they knew by day 2 that sound is a way, don't say anything, go to the water, they're afraid of the water. I'm like, all right, so you guys established that like real damn quick. But I think with one of the things with the helicopters is what they were doing is trying to divert all the aliens there. But then you've got people with freaking suitcases that are like rolling them around. And I'm like, God, and that to me, and I know what you were saying. It's like, how is Jaimin Hansu and his family? It's like, because Jaimin Hansu's smart. You know what you don't do? You don't go with the lemmings in the first group because they're going to be slaughtered. You wait 1 or 2 days and then you get on that boat, because even if it's not military or anything like that, there's going to be rowboats or something by, and you just have to be quiet.
Well,
and you have to be smart.
I disagree, because they don't know that there's going to be multiple boats. They know that on day 1, they're saying, hey, get to this harbor. There's a boat waiting there to take you to safety. But in an end of the world scenario, you don't know if the aliens are if there's 1,000 more of these things coming out of the sky that's going to blow up the boats, blow up the military, incapacitate their ability to escape. So I agree, they might not have gone with the herd, but they can still go a few blocks over and, take the quiet route.
I'm a pessimist and with the crazies, I don't necessarily believe those higher authorities when stuff goes down. I want to wait and see what happens, because in most of those films, like, guess what, everyone's infected, so we have to kill you all. Sorry.
Yeah. But it's interesting listening to this panel talk about it too, because we all know what the parameters are of the aliens, even though you said accurately, Mark, that sometimes they play fast and loose with some of the consistencies. But here's the other thing too, is this whole film has this, and we're talking about it here ourselves and falling in the same trap in a way, is it has that New Yorker viewpoint. Remember that poster of New Yorker's view of the world? It's New York. And then it's like everything is small as it goes on. How does anybody in this town know that it's just happening in New York? I mean, nobody ever says, is this a worldwide thing? Or, I mean, there's no instruction. There's no news about that. I mean, it's weird to me that opportunity to talk about this or ask those questions wouldn't come up. They act like, oh, it's happening everywhere. Really? How do you know that? Where's the news? Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's asking questions. Is this everywhere? Is this a War of the Worlds? Is this a alien invasion? Oh, it's just Manhattan. I mean, seriously, we're only shown Manhattan, and it's this very small little world where all this seems to be taking place on with absolutely no communication anyway else. And I think that hurts us a little bit too, because at least they should have been asking questions like, what's going on here? You know, is this a worldwide thing? Is this beyond the state of New York, beyond the city parameters? What's going on? None of that ever comes up as conversation. They talk about pizza till you're blue in the face, and nobody ever says, what's happening here? What are these aliens from? What are we doing to respond to it as a world?
Right.
But that to me was one of the things I had fault with the first one, because you have these aliens that can hear noise and all that stuff. And then 18 months in, you see these newspaper clippings like aliens attack. When the hell are you printing those papers?
Exactly.
When you? It's like, what is this? Come on, guys. Really?
We already took over CNN. Come on.
So the 5-year-old is going to get killed by his little thing, but you guys can print out a whole paper and it'll be totally fine and deliver it.
And
not only
here's a very good point,
but also delivering it.
But here's the thing, and it's the problem when you get into making sequels and prequels.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Mark, I think you were kind of like alluding to, you know, what people want out of this movie or these kinds of movies. I want them to not be made. I think you don't. No, seriously, A Quiet Place, like The Matrix. Like a lot of these movies where it's like, oh wow, the first one was a surprise hit and made all the money. Now that must mean people want to see more. I'm like, not necessarily.
Yeah.
You know, just leave it as a mystery, because I don't have a problem with there being newspaper clippings of the alien invasion, because at that point it's up to your imagination. We don't know if it was one of these things coming down and running rampant in a city like New York, so it's like the news spreads slowly, or if it's a full-scale invasion like this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the trailer for this movie for day one says, find out why Earth was or why we were chosen, or our planet was chosen, or something. The very opening shot of this film is a shot of New York, and it says, New York City emits like 900 decibels of noise per day.
Right.
I'm like, oh, okay, so now I can go home. I found out. The answer is from the trailer is in the opening seconds of the film. And that's one of my beefs with this is I walked out of the theater wondering why I had spent the last hour and 40 minutes watching this movie. And then I wondered why I spent the previous hour and 40 minutes watching A Quiet Place Part 2, which ends with several dangling threads. You could even call them cliffhangers. I'm like, so they're not even going to go with a third one. They're just going to go right to the prequel. I mean, the only bit of originality, I think, with this movie is that they called it Day One and not A Quiet Place at the beginning, because that would have been the subtitle 5 years ago. Look, I'm done ranting.
Thank God for that.
Thank God for them done ranting. Yes, Jeff, I agree.
No, thank God for that. Yeah.
Yes. Well, so what we're going to do to wind things down is we're going to go through Sajiwa's comments. We're going to do speed
another half hour.
I'm going to scroll. No, we're going to go through them and pull over if there's anything kind of worth like dissecting. But yeah, this is fun.
So we won't be pulling over.
Wow. All right. Sajiwa says special guest joining.
Who's that?
New York City is number 1.
Okay.
Although with that exclamation point, it almost looks like it's number 11. But not all guys in this show. All right. Annie is back. Yes, she was.
She was.
Yeah.
Quiet Place was too quiet. Saw it at a movie theater. It was boring. Alrighty. The whole plot: man hides from aliens, escape to a boat. Yeah. The producers, how little can we do to make a
The
bunch of
elevator
money
pitch.
from this franchise? Day one is like minimalism.
I wish it was minimalism. That'd be great.
Yeah. 3 ages of man in the bottom row. David the teenage, Mark the early 20s, Jeff the 30s. What? Okay.
I'll take it. I'll take it. Yeah. Why, yes. I just got old enough to drink. That's why I now have alcohol.
Puberty sucks.
Hey. Like it's like the week of compliments, Mark. Remember the other night when someone said I was cute?
And
Yeah,
here's the old man. In my day, our summer alien movies had humans fighting back, not like this sleepy alien invasion movie.
People got the exterminator for man.
That's the way it was, and we liked it.
Get off my lawn.
We went from car to car telling people, watch out for the aliens. The body snatchers are coming for you.
What is your day? What is that?
My day.
Oh, like Independence Day?
Hey. Independence Day is Citizen Kane compared to Quiet Place Day one. And I'm saying it, sticking with it.
The pizza.
Look,
the pizza
Bill
in
Pullman's
New York is
speech-
terrible,
What do you
you're
want
right.
us to do?
Bill Pullman's speech.
Die.
Yes, Dr. Oken. Okay, but no, Bill Pullman's speech is done. You get that one guy in the flight suit who looked just like Christian Slater's, like, less attractive cousin
Randy
going.
Quaid.
Yeah.
I still tear up
No,
when
you don't.
he says, "Tell my children I love them very much."
Aw.
You tell him yourself.
And then
You're
James
gonna make-
Duvall going, "What are you doing?" Sorry.
I'm back.
Yeah. And
Hey,
it
Will
wasn't,
Smith was practicing his punch. He took that alien out.
and it wasn't
went-
supposed to be, he wasn't supposed to be in a jet.
Get
Either
my
one.
wife's
Right?
name
Yeah.
out of your alien mouth.
That's right. Harry Connick Jr. pour some out.
Get my president's name out of your filthy mouth. Welcome to Earth.
The
Look,
pizza in New York is terrible. You're right, Sajua.
Wow.
Such a-
Hey.
Such a room.
Whoa.
Look. They've got like New York style pizza at Domino's or something right now, which it's fine. But
At least
here's
New
the
York.
question.
At least New York has flat slices and not casserole and a crust. Anyway,
Casserole and a
I agree.
Ooh.
Thin crust is
Shots
forever.
fired. Shots
Tavern
fired.
Crust is
style,
great.
baby.
Listen,
Tombstone. What do you want on your tombstone?
Home run in.
Mexican pizza. So,
Is
I
there
got
more?
a question. Yeah, there is, but I
Is
just
there
gotta pull
more?
over. Look, you asked about Harry. You mentioned Harry Connick Jr. So
He's
I have
got a new
to.
rom com coming up.
Well, really?
Netflix.
yeah.
Is it called Shit Floats? Anyway,
Wow, Ian!
You're gonna have to talk to
Damn.
Sandra Bullock about that,
sorry.
or Jodie Foster.
But no. Speaking of Netflix, is anyone else here watching Bridgerton?
Yes,
Okay,
many times.
I cannot think of the actor who plays Nathan Bridgerton without thinking of Harry Connick Jr. I thought that was him for like half of the first season doing a bad accent.
There is no Nathan Bridgerton.
Or what? Not Nathan.
Anthony?
Anthony. I keep wanting to call him Nathan. It's
Oh my-
Anthony. It's Anthony. No H.
So,
That's
so
what
there's
it
a guy named Bridgerton in the show.
Viscount.
It's a-
Viscount Bridgerton.
That's
Yeah.
not the name
Viscount,
of
which
the
is
town?
it's spelled Viscount, which totally threw
Who's
me
on
off.
first? We literally got a who's on
Exactly.
first. going on here.
Besides, hey, look, the show's called Bridgerton because it's about the Bridgerton family and their intrigue and a lot of sex. All right, so
The
speaking
town's
of sex,
called
Yes,
Horizon.
there
It's not
is.
the Wild West. Okay, go ahead.
is that true?
And chamber music covers of pop songs. Anyway,
Hey,
um,
from the start, I was like, dude, the pizza shop's closed down for electrical problems. They're definitely closed for an alien invasion. Yes. Tanks and helicopters not being able to kill these aliens makes no sense. It's physics. Projectiles will destroy most things with enough power behind them. Aliens have
See-
some fantasy physics.
no, see, and that's where I kind of disagree with Sajiwa, only because we do see scenes where there are corpses of aliens, mostly corpses of the National Guard and such, but there was a fight. We just never
Right.
got to see it. And they knew people were still on the island, and the military didn't want to razz it till they tried to get as many people as they could off of it.
There was
That's
a
at least the
firefight.
motivation that I picked up on it. That's why they weren't launching missiles into the buildings on Manhattan from the jets that were flying by.
True
Yes.
that.
By the way, I watched Godzilla X Kong last week.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Hashtag me too.
And he loved
But
it.
at the end of that movie, when Godzilla and Kong are fighting giant ape Kong or whatever, They're
Pete
destroying.
Davidson Kong? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
There are so many people dying in those buildings. How like
Yes,
I
there are.
honestly thought we were done with this Man of Steel business, but the people I were watching it thought it was very funny, so I joined in the laughter. Kind of ashamed, but
You
not
watched
really.
it with people?
Yes.
Yeah.
Would have been better if the aliens had had 30-minute arguments about trade routes. Yes. Yes. Where are the Nemoidians when you need them? Movie was technically well made, but following the smallest possible story in New York City while aliens attack was not a great choice. NYC has defenses that are bigger than some small countries. NYC security would have tried a lot of things to fight back. Yes, I want to see Paul Blart Mall Cop versus the Quiet Place aliens. It would have been more like Cloverfield in real life. Yes, that's what brought up Cloverfield. This is how far back we're going in the comments, gang.
Gee.
And where is Woody Allen during all this? Doing unspeakable things.
Yes.
Different in elevation levels for subway station. Lower Manhattan gets flooded heavily. Further up, less flooding typically, but it's a movie. They're doing whatever. Exactly.
Wouldn't it have been funny if Woody Allen was in that jazz club with his clarinet? I thought we were playing it. It's Monday night. I mean, I'm here.
He would be
Woody
the first
Allen's-
one to die because he couldn't stop talking.
Yes.
Look, someone just needs to make Woody Allen's Manhattan poster. Just put like the little things coming down out of the sky in the background. The stuff the aliens ate, probably some alien farmed product or maybe something they cooked, maybe alien pizza. That's a movie I'd watch, Alien Pizza.
Spam.
People expect a lot when it's a major summer movie about aliens attacking the NYC, so the disappointment makes sense. Seinfeld, what's with the aliens and the noise? Can we get them to keep people quiet at the movies?
What's with the aliens and the noise?
Exactly.
Somebody
movie
shut
was
Nicole
not
Kidman
necessary.
up.
Neither was Seinfeld. Anyway.
What?
Yeah.
This movie was not
Oh, yeah.
necessary. The first one
You don't
was
like
enough.
Seinfeld, Mark?
Nope.
I'm with
First
this
chink
guy.
in the armor, but
I don't like Seinfeld either,
Or Friends.
but
Oh, boy.
I love Friends.
I love Friends.
Here, let me explain something though,
Oh,
Jeff.
boy.
I don't like Seinfeld because I see your crushing disappointment. I love the scripts. Someone gave me a book of Seinfeld scripts and I read them. I was, this is really good. And then I watched the episodes they were based on. Like, there's just something I don't know what it is. I can't explain it.
It's
I need
Jerry
to go on the
Seinfeld.
couch for that one.
That's who it is.
Hey. He had a great bit. He was heckled in a club recently by some Palestinian protesters, and he had some real zingers coming back at him. It was quite lovely. to
You're
behold.
heckling me. Why are you
Oh,
here?
Penny.
Me.
Hey, Petty.
hey, Betty.
Petty. Hello,
Cabernet
everyone.
Franc.
Today I discovered a very good varietal Cabernet Franc. Here I leave you a contribution so you can try it too. For $11, you can get a good one. All right.
Nice.
Hey,
Thank you.
where were you before I went to go see A Quiet Place Day One? Because that would have come in very handy. But I thank you for your contribution, sir. Always appreciate you. And with that, I believe we are closing out the comments and indeed closing out the show. Any final words on A Quiet
Closing
Place
out the
Day
show.
One? Yeah. I'm Christopher Walken versus the Quiet Place aliens. I'd watch that movie.
I had
twice.
enough of him in Dune 2.
Okay, Christopher Walken 30 years ago fighting the
Okay, all
aliens in Quiet Place Day One.
A Quiet Place Day One is a film that did not need to be made. If they were going to make it, they should have told a different story than this one. That said, if you go in with little to no expectations, just going in to see maybe a character piece similar to what you've already gotten so far in the franchise, then you probably won't be disappointed because you'll realize you're getting just another story with new characters, similar themes that you're comfortable with. Modern movie audiences seem to start to gravitate towards, while they say they want new things, gravitate towards things they're comfortable with. We're seeing it now, and I'm bringing it up. I know I'm a DC shill. I won't keep us long, but we're seeing it up right now with the new Superman from James Gunn. People are clamoring for BTS stuff. People are clamoring for behind-the-scenes stuff. Nobody wants to be surprised anymore with their films as far as the internet groups go that want to watch these films. They want to consume all information, so when they go in, they know exactly what they're getting. They like familiarity, and that's what some of these audiences are getting, and I think that's what they're trying to play to. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying I think that's what you get. If you think of A Quiet Place Day One, is you get familiarity because you get a lot of what you got in the previous two films. It's a little bit more character driven, but if you're looking for something to expand the scope even further than what you got in in Quiet Place Part 2, which I personally love because it expanded the world at least a little bit more, you will be disappointed. The only thing I will say is I agree with Katie, though. This is one of the first disaster films in a long time where I didn't see people being shitty to other people and throwing like babies and stuff at the noisemakers. I give them props there because you get so many of these apocalypse movies that immediately, like after society has broken down, they immediately run across someone who either wants to rape, eat, or kill you.
Yes.
And not necessarily in that order. You know, so it was refreshing at least that we didn't get that. But
Yeah.
if you are looking for something new or more answers, you are going to be disappointed. That's I'll shut up now. Sorry.
No, I think it's very well stated. I will say the one thing about the behind the scenes photos thing is I understand where you're coming from, but it's also a casualty of the internet era because
Oh, yeah, I know.
you're going to have one
no, I know.
person posting, you know, hey, I got this cool behind the scenes picture. Whereas, you know, 30 years ago, they would have sent it to Starlog or something. They would have published it. And like, you know, the subscribers and people who happen to see it at Walden Books would have seen it. Right. But now it's everywhere. You cannot ignore those things. You go to Twitter and it's like, there's a picture of Corn Sweat in that baggy, weird costume before you even, there's not even like, hey, we're not sure if you want to see this. So click on it if you want to. It's just there. And you're like, oh, well, I guess I know what that looks like.
Nathan Fillion and his Buster Brown haircut.
the only advantage you had then is usually the information that you had in majority of those magazines was already out of date by the time it went to print because they changed it. So you had magazines that had footage and scenes in there that never showed up in the movie, like ever. And you know, and the only thing just to add to that is that where you'll either get the studio where it's releasing the behind the scenes stuff now, or you'll get what Deadpool is doing, which I'm trying to avoid everything known to man because they keep releasing or getting hints of what cameos might be coming up that would have been great to find out once my ass is in the seat that, you know, you're going to have your ticket anyway. Don't give me any more, but you give me everything. And so by the end of it, I get in there and I'm like, oh yeah, this.
Again, Mark, I think I agree and I disagree. For me, watching all this new stuff that's coming out about, you know, Deadpool, Wolverine, they had a cameo scene with a certain villain from the X-Men that I won't ruin in case anyone out there doesn't know what I'm talking about. But I watched that bit and it was not very long, but I was like, this is in line with everything else I've seen of this movie. So it's helping me to understand that I'm probably not going to enjoy the movie. So it's not getting my hopes up. So on that score, I definitely appreciate you can't be disappointed when you want to jump off a cliff before you buy your ticket. All right. So Sejua says good discussion, more interesting than the movie. Perfect summation, sir. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for hanging out, for hanging on. I know this has gone almost the length of A Quiet Place Day 1. We appreciate you, your comments, your input. I appreciate all of you on the panel. I know we disagreed on this one, but it's been a very spirited discussion. And for those out there who have been watching, if you're still watching, and we have quite a few people who are, if you like this stream, please feel free to give it a like, a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. We'd love to have you. And next week, as I mentioned earlier in the show, we're going to be back Wednesday, July 10th. Is that right? Yeah, 10th. Talking the 25th anniversary of South Park, bigger, longer, and uncut. We missed the 25th anniversary by about a week by that point, but you know, I still want to talk about it, revisit it, see if it still holds up.
Never seen it.
Really?
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 David, I have the soundtrack. I will gift it to you after you watch the movie.
Blame Canada.
You are going to be singing the songs out of that movie. I guarantee.
What would Ryan Boitano do? Yeah.
I like Shut Your Effing Face, Uncle Effer, the second song in the movie, personally. But yeah, join us back here for that, please. All right, wait, hold on.
Bye.
You got the wait.
There's
cat emoji.
Cat.
Yay.
I thought they were stumpy devil horn hands, but no, it's a cat.
The Gila and his cat. Yeah.
Yes.
Devil horns with whiskers. There it is.
Devil horns with whiskers. Yeah.
I'm not wearing
That
my
is a
reading
cat.
glasses. I can't see anything. All right.
That is
there
a
you
cat.
All right.
Little
Well,
horns with
thank you,
whiskers.
everybody. I'm Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We have Cati Glidewell, the bald in front, aka the blonde in front, Jeff York of the Establishing Shot, and Pipeline Artist, Mark the Movie Man Krawczyk of Special Mark Productions and the Spoiler Room, David J. Fowlie of Keeping It Real. And we also had for like a couple of minutes in the beginning, Annie Banks of the Mary Sue. We got this covered. All their information is down below. Please follow them, like, subscribe. Just a great bunch of people and friends. And until next time, thank you very much for watching this Kicking the Seat live stream of A Quiet Place Day 1. Until next time, whenever that is, whatever that is, thank you and take care. And now.